Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Alder Hour, your favorite way to end the working day, or the working afternoon, or the working lunch, or the working evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. It's still your favorite way to spend the next hour. We are on show number 48. Time indeed flies. I'm Matt Alder from Recruiting Future. I host the Alder Hour. This show is part of the Purple Acorn Network. So head over to purpleacornnetwork.com. Make sure you watch the show first. So after the show, if you want to learn more about Purple Acorn. But the best thing to do is to go to the Purple Acorn LinkedIn page, and you can see all the great shows that they have there and watch them as they stream live. This show, and indeed all the Purple Acorn shows, are available as a podcast afterwards, wherever you get your quality podcasts. Now, we are live, and I want you to help me prove that. So leave us some comments wherever you're watching this, and we will do our best to bring the comments up on the screen and involve you in the conversation. We have a packed show with lots of people coming up tonight, so I'm very excited about some of the great discussions that we're going to have, and it would be great if you all joined in. So without further ado, let's get started. And I would like to say a big hello to tonight's co-host. Jocelyn, how are you? It is a pleasure to have you back on the show. It's been a few weeks. What have you been up to?
Hey, Matt. I'm good. Thank you. I'm so excited to be back. When I got the text asking for a quick guest, um, uh, you know, uh, coming in of Older Hour, I was super excited about it. So thank you so much for having me here.
Excellent. And where in the world are you at the moment? Because you're normally traveling around or in, a hotel somewhere. Where are you at this precise moment in time?
I know I always have a different hotel background whenever I'm on the show. No, I am actually home, if you can believe it. I got back home last night.
Fantastic. Well, let's get into our first segment, which is points and pints. If you've not watched the show before, what we do is we look at a couple of stories that we found in the news this week while drinking and experimenting with beverages is probably the best way to describe this. Now, Jocelyn, do you have a drink? Because we called you in at the last minute here, so you do. You've
I
got something.
do.
You've got
I
something.
do.
Excellent. What do you have? What are you drinking tonight?
Okay, so did not go alcoholic this time because I still have meetings the rest of the day today, Matt. But I went with a poppy strawberry lemon soda,
Wow.
which I'm really
Wow.
excited about because I haven't
Yeah.
tried it yet, and it's been sitting in
Yeah.
my fridge for some time, so it's perfect timing.
I'm quite jealous about that. So I'm at kind of like it's towards the end of the year, so I had to look in the office cupboard to see what I had left from all the drinks I've bought for the show over the last 12 months. So the first thing I came across was this thing. I don't think you were here on the show when I had this, which is I'm sorry, Gordon, is the most disgusting non-alcoholic drink I've ever had. So I'm not going to have that. Instead, I found this, which is a Scottish beer called Joker. Alcohol free, obviously, because as we found out, I cannot present the show if I have beer with alcohol in it. So this is what I'm going to have. So let's here we go. Let's pour it out and see what we think. There we go. I can never get the camera right here. So mine is an alcohol-free, a multi-award-winning alcohol-free IPA.
Nice. Cheers.
Cheers, and it's great. I really recommend this one. I'm not sure if you can even get it outside of Scotland, but it's great. But tell me about your strawberry soda thing. How is that?
Absolutely delicious. Yeah, highly recommend it.
Excellent. So there are drinks recommendations for the day. If you can get hold of this one, it's great. Okay, so let's move on to our first article. And there we are. It's about AI. There's the big surprise. Now, really interesting. This article is looking at all of the state laws that are coming in about AI, either the ones that are already here or the ones that are coming in the next, either on January the 1st, or I think some of them are coming in June next year. It talks about regulations in New York, California, Texas, Illinois, Colorado. It mentions the EU for good measure, which obviously isn't a state in America, but for many global organizations, it's kind of very, very relevant. And then talks about the potential that in some cases the federal law is potentially going in the opposite direction to state law. How confusing this is. Also, all the state laws are different. For example, the one that's coming in Texas only basically sort of legislates against physical harm and criminal activity with AI. Everything else seems to be fair game, but obviously California, New York, very different, particularly relevant for employment. Jocelyn, what's your view? What's your view on this? What is going on with all these regulations?
Yeah, it's so interesting because without a federal law, each state or locality is setting its own rules, which is a complete compliance nightmare for employers, at least those that are operating nationally. So it's nice because it allows for region specific protections, but it can be quite difficult. So it kind of begs the question, what does that fragmentation do to business agility? And I think
Mm.
we'll start seeing that more and more.
Yeah, I mean, how does it affect sort of your business in terms of what you do? It must have a bearing on all kinds of things.
It's interesting. So actually, within our product, we have an entire talent acquisition module for compliance. So, for those of you who don't know, Virtual HR is an employment and labor law compliance software for HR professionals. And so we've been implementing a lot of these laws. There are some that are coming out in 2026 that people should really kind of catch up with and be aware of, because it really does impact you. It doesn't matter where you as a business are located, it matters where the candidate is located. So if you are headquartered in South Carolina, but you're speaking with a candidate in New York, you have to comply with New York law, and that gets to be quite tricky. So we're doing our best to try and educate and guide HR professionals the best we can on what their requirements are, depending on where a candidate is located. But as a business, just kind of running business and recruiting employees ourselves, it does make it really difficult, Matt, because
Mm,
you're
mm.
constantly having to check and see where is this candidate located, and then you have to educate your recruiters on the laws, and the laws are changing all the time, so it's quite tricky.
And how different are the laws and regulations? Do they, obviously some states don't have them, but how different are they? Are there some similarities between them, or is it, or is it more difference?
Yeah, so they are quite different. You have New York, for example, that requires you to show that you have audited whatever AI tool you're using to ensure that there isn't any type of algorithmic bias. And then you have states like Texas, for example, that are a bit more high level, overarching, I
Mm,
guess you'd
mm.
say, maybe not as restrictive as New York might be. Um, you've got Illinois. Illinois has a ban on discrimination proxies. You kind of have to be aware of that. And it's interesting because when you look at these laws like New York City or like Illinois, for example, they're really forcing companies to be transparent and proactive about bias, which is great. But not all companies necessarily practice that way. So again, the practice is going to have to be adjusted based on the candidate that they're speaking to. So it almost kind of again raises this question. There's so many questions raised out of this
Yeah, yeah.
article, Matt, because it is such a tricky topic. But can AI ever be truly fair?
Mm,
Do
mm.
audits and oversight go far enough, or are they just kind of a fig leaf for continued structural bias? So I think we're going to see more and more of these changes coming at a state and local level, and it's going to be incredibly dynamic for recruiting teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also when you sort of take that onto the international level, you've got the EU AI Act, which we've obviously talked about before. We've got the UK sitting on the fence and not really deciding what it's doing act. But also then you've got countries like in the Middle East, like the UAE, that don't have any regulations and actually are actively kind of pushing the fact they don't have any regulations. And I think also for some of the software providers who operate globally, this is a really confusing time in terms of what their AI can or can't do. And it just seems like it seems like it's only going to get more confusing as we move forward.
It will. And it's something very interesting that will come out of it is that HR professionals are going to need new skills. They're going to need new skills
Mm.
around compliance and education on compliance, on vendor management, if they're outsourcing AI tools, on auditing outcomes. So that's very new for HR. And then just in general, managing risk. So I could totally see this being a situation where we might witness a transformation of what HR even means. So it'll be
Yeah.
quite interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think we need to watch this one carefully in terms of how it continues to evolve, because also we've got the federal government that wants to go in a different direction, and yeah, how is it all going to pan out? Something to keep a close eye on in 2026, definitely. Let's move on to the next one, which is from Business Insider. I think how tech broke the job market. It's quite interesting actually, because the headline is a little bit clickbaity compared to what the article is about. So this article is all about it's all about the sort of current job seeking situation. So it uses the example of actually a head of talent acquisition who was laid off, who took some time out of the industry and has tried to get back in, has applied for, it's a familiar tale I think we've heard all year, has applied for hundreds of jobs, has heard nothing back, and has seen a real kind of change in the market. Now, the article kind of underlines a sort of a number of issues that I think are kind of worth discussing. So first and foremost, a lot of this is caused by the fact that there are more people looking for jobs than there are jobs in some sectors, and I think that's the reality that kind of sits behind this. This article kind of blames technology, interestingly, for making it easy for everyone to apply for jobs. That's kind of where it sets its stall out. It's actually very clear that a lot of employers aren't using AI at the moment to to kind of sift people or select people, which is kind of normally where these articles go. It's always like it's all AI's fault, but that's not what this is kind of saying. And then it goes on. There's kind of extensive quotes from Daniel, the CEO at Greenhouse, about the market, volumes of jobs going up, and all this kind of stuff. So, what really came out of this for me is just how all of these things are contributing to this kind of breakdown of trust in the hiring process, and what we might do to fix it. Really, Justine, what's your take on the current what's kind of currently going on for job seekers out there?
Yeah, it's interesting because yes, when technology makes it so much easier for you to apply for a job, you kind of just do this like scatter and pray approach, right? As an applicant. And so often what ends up happening is you have a lot of unqualified candidates who are applying for these jobs. When you are not using AI or some type of screening solution, it does make it really burdensome for the
Mm.
recruiting team to go through all these applications and deny these individuals. And what ends up happening, I think, in my opinion, is that you end up deteriorating the quality of the candidate experience because recruiting is so bogged down by simply the administrative efforts of getting through all these candidates and screening them. And so, as a result, candidates have a poor experience, and then yes, there's that kind of deterioration of trust that exists at an employer brand level, or simply at kind of a more personal level, where am I even going to be able to get a job? So it's quite interesting because I think that in
Yeah.
some ways, yes, tech might have broken the job market, but in other ways, if you're using the right type of tech, you can be super efficient.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Actually, I think, and I think the challenge probably for next year is I think that as an industry, or just in general, very bad at putting across the benefits of AI. I think that, what I liked about this article is it wasn't blaming AI for selecting people and not contacting them and all that kind of stuff. But I think that, making candidates understand that, AI in the process can really help with communication and speed and transparency if it's used properly. Is kind of a big sort of PR thing that needs to happen, because the volume of applications isn't going to change. Doing what we've always done is not going to change this situation. It needs something to make it better. And I completely agree with you that actually technology, clever use of AI is the answer. And from a lot of case studies I've seen in the last 6 months, there are employers who are doing just that and getting great feedback from candidates. So yeah, I think it's something that we probably need to pay much more attention to, and just in terms of kind of winning that PR war about
Yeah.
about technology.
It is really hard to do that when you have all these lawsuits coming out, right? Whether it's Workday or
Exactly.
Intuit or
Mm.
HireVue. I mean, there
Yeah.
are all these lawsuits coming out about I wouldn't say misuse of AI, but at the very least, we have these issues around perhaps training material that is being used to train AI, and the fact that it could cause this algorithmic bias, which is what we're starting to see more and more people allegating when they're suing these employers. And then, of course, and we've talked about this Workday lawsuit in the past. When I've been on the show, but then of course there's this fear of, oh my gosh, it's not just the HR tech vendor getting in trouble, it's the employer getting in trouble. And at any point in time, I don't know, could an individual get in, they're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
there isn't enough precedent yet that's been
Yeah.
set at a legal
Yeah.
level that gives businesses a sense of confidence in being able to use some of these tools. And that's a big problem when we talk about PR.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I was going to make that point actually in the previous article about the lack
Oh,
of precedent.
sorry about
We
that.
don't know, no, I know, you just reminded me that there is a lack of precedent around these laws and exactly how they're going to be interpreted. So yeah, it's a really sort of tricky situation. But I think I'm kind of with you. Technology may be causing the problem, but it's really the only solution while economies are like they are, and the amount of job seekers out there, and all of those kind of things. So I'm an AI optimist, and I'm going to be optimistic about it and say we'll get there eventually. But it's going to be, as you say, it's going to be a rocky and confusing road on the way. So yes, a very interesting. Another 12 months coming up. Jocelyn, thank you so much for joining us and bringing your expertise to the conversation. It's been brilliant talking to you again. And we are now going to go over to Trent for Talk Nerdy with iCIMS.
Hello and welcome to Nerds Corner. I love talking about data, and today's guest really needs no introduction. If you're anywhere in recruiting, you know the name Hung Lee. So, Mr. Lee, welcome to Talk Nerdy with iCIMS. How are you?
Thank you, Trent. And I should really call you Mr. Cotton. Shall we go super formal, sir?
We'll be super formal today because we are two very formal guys. Well, I am so excited to have you on, and especially, for the audience, I'm actually doing a little bit of a sneak peek of our December Insights report. There's some interesting trends that we're doing, and we're kind of looking back on the year. And I thought, who else would have better insights than you on some of the things that just really kind of stood out to us this year? So, just as a reminder for anyone that maybe this is your first time joining, every month, iCIMS puts out a free workforce report. It's all of our data, so that includes like over 3 million global platform users, 630 million candidate profiles, and even more in the millions of applications and hires. So we take all of that information and put it back out in the market. And in December, we're actually doing a look back. And I want to go ahead and kind of let's play a little game. Let's call it surprise or signal. So whenever the data pops up, does this surprise you? And is it a signal for 2026? You down?
Totally, man. Lay it on me.
All right. So let's bring up the very first one. So we went through and we looked at hot jobs, and basically we looked at the highest applicant per opening. So where is the market really focused? And we came up with our top three, which is computer and mathematical occupations, business and finance, and then management occupations. So first, does this surprise you?
It surprised me, but then I kind of reread the criteria, Trent, and then it
Okay.
didn't surprise me. So as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying that a hot job is rated based on the number of applicants per job.
Correct.
So a job with 100 applicants is more hot than a job with 20 applicants, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Okay, in this case, I see Signal having initially been surprised.
Okay. All right. So what do you think this means for 2026 if it's a signal?
Yeah, I just think that the dramatic demand for computer skills, computer occupation, and so forth, that is now becoming much more competitive from a job seeker perspective than it has been. It wasn't so long ago, Trent, where if you're a comp sci a sort of major and you graduated, you'd be getting an offer straight off the bat, and you'd have a number of things to choose from, and there'd be no issue whatsoever. Today. This is from my contacts in the tech game and recruiters that recruit on tech as well. It's just much more difficult. Hiring managers have this kind of abundance mindset, taking longer to make decisions, wanting to see more candidates. Everything tells me that actually has been a rebalancing of supply and demand when it comes to tech. Still huge, like uber demand on sort of frontier AI research. That's still like, Mark Zuckerberg level. Let's throw $100 million offers to people and so on. But that sort of big middle part, where we have people that are kind of like computer programming, kind of, in that tech game, that's no longer as high demand as it was. So they're encountering sort of lots of competition per job. Doesn't surprise me.
Well, and let's see if this surprises you. So we look at different sectors, and believe it or not, the computer and mathematical occupations, it was also incredibly high in manufacturing. We saw a ton of candidates kind of go that route, which, you think manufacturing, you don't necessarily think, kind of the comm math scenario. It's kind of like, no, it's more skilled labor, but there was a lot of hiring going on in the manufacturing space, which that surprised me. I don't know if that'll sustain or what going into 2026, but it did kind of make me pause and go, well, that's interesting.
That's got to be about automation, hasn't it? It's got to be about automation of manufacturing, because the truth is, globally speaking, the kind of the share of employment in global manufacturing is basically but on a 100-year trend down. It's like it
Right.
basically we're getting better at automation with regards, and we're producing more stuff for less people. That's just been year on year and year and year. However, if you're saying that actually we're seeing an upsurge of sort of computer science and mathematical sort of educated people getting hired into manufacturing, that actually supports, because it means that manufacturing facilities are hiring a different type of person instead of like basically people in overalls doing physical work. That these folks are going to be behind computer screens and design with technology.
Yeah, and it has come up on my social feed a couple of times of this video of a humanless warehouse, and it's just AI driving the different things around. So makes a lot of sense. And again, it's one of those data points that initially kind of shocks you, but then as you back into it, you're like, you know what, that does kind of track. So, all right, so let's move on to our second of our top three. And this is from our frontline hiring report that we released in September. So we polled 1,000 frontline hiring managers and 1,000 candidates. And we found out from the candidates that 6 out of 10 started but did not finish an application. And then we double clicked on it and said, okay, well, why? 50% said it was too long, 35% feel that they lack the qualifications, and then 31% cite lack of pay transparency. Surprise or signal, or both?
I think that's expected results. I would expect that the length of the application process would always be the number one, because that firstly is very variable. But you can imagine the abandon rate. Like we know that through e-commerce, don't we? And checkouts and stuff. If you're throwing too many questions at people, they're going to bounce. Yeah. Particularly if their intent is quite low, or their sentiment is, their commitment, should I say, is quite low. A lot of people who are looking at job ads, they're kind of making they're still in the discovery process really of the job, rather than being fully committed that I want this job no matter what. And so that person is probably just throwing their hat in the ring. And in which case, you got to make that ring big enough for them to throw it into. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that that's the top rank. Maybe the pay transparency thing probably is
Same.
1% strikes me as quite high.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested to know where the demographic distribution there is, because there's certain jurisdictions, obviously, where it's become, and certain sectors, to be honest, where they've got pay transparency is pretty much standardized, but then there's others where it's non-standardized, in which case
Right.
that would not be a reason to bounce out if you didn't see the numbers there. So yeah, I think that's an interesting one to dive down a little bit more in terms of the demographics segmentation.
Yeah, we didn't have the demographics on the actual survey, but I can tell you that demographically, for all of the information that we pull, it's 62 or 63% of our candidates that we're looking at in our pool, they're in that millennial and Gen X. And so, as we're kind of looking at some of the different data trends, it's something I always have to keep in mind of going, okay, Gen Z is acting very different. The pay transparency aspect of it, again, this is one that did surprise me, but I kind of took a step back, and it makes sense. How many times have you read a job description and go, oh my gosh, this is a great job. I'm so excited about this. You go on, you spend an hour with the recruiter, and of course, the last 5 minutes is whenever you actually talk about compensation, and then you find out it's $20,000 or $30,000 less than what you're making. It's in a very inefficient way of leveraging time versus just putting something out there and giving the candidate the opportunity to self-select out and go, okay, that's below what I can actually accept. So do you think that this is something we're going to see a lot more of in 2026?
I don't know is the true answer to this. Because I think that basically candidate experience, I've got a feeling that it's so heavily linked to just general economic anxiety, right? When the job market was booming, guess what? Candidate experience was quite high because
Right.
everyone was getting jobs, interviews, and everyone's feeling great as a result of that. These days, competition is so fierce, everyone's going to feel just super stressed. So I think the sentiment is still going to be very, very tough on CX. The rationale, as cited reasons as to why people would abandon an application, I think may switch. So, for instance, I would hope that the speed of application will change. These days, we're seeing a lot more implementation of AI interviewing. I think actually will speed up a lot of this application flow, in the sense that are we asking people to fill in forms anymore? I hope not.
Right.
Are we asking people to hand type some answers to questions? Not really. Hopefully not. I mean, those things have got to go, right? So I'm hoping to see that number go down if you run this next year. Number two is interesting, actually. They feel they lack the qualifications, so that's
Yeah.
definitely a problem of communication from the employer side. Like,
Mhm.
why have you not communicated clearly what the expectations are in terms of qualifications, given the fact that you've got a bunch of people entering into process and then suddenly realizing they're not qualified? That doesn't help
Right.
anybody. So we've got to get better on the EB and the recruitment marketing side there. And pay transparency, yeah, that's still a mystery to me, man. It's like, okay, that's probably just down to those local jurisdictions and when those rules come out.
Yeah, it's interesting. The whole pay transparency and posting the salary information on a job. Um, I did it once. It was kind of like I call it a drive-by. I go and threw it out, and I said, I think that you should absolutely post the compensation on the job. And I didn't check my LinkedIn for like 48 hours because I knew it was just lining up. And I had a couple of people text me and said, "You're just really going to just drop this and then just go dark." But it's a very contested conversation, and there's truth on both sides of it, but we got to find a way to find some type of a compromise. That way, everyone can get what they need to, which is fast tracking that top talent.
There's reasons for it.
Mhm.
There's reasons to not be transparent, and this is not to make excuses, but I do think that we want to move away from moralization. There's a rather unpleasant attachment of moral values to some positions that are
Mhm.
oftentimes just systemic. And we think, oh, pay transparency means you must be morally better than someone who's non-pay transparent. But there's actually loads of reasons why the latter is the case.
Right.
For instance, if you're a small business that's, you don't have a leveling scheme, and you've inherited a lot of resources and you've hired it's been a chaos, of course your pays are going to be all over the place. Then maybe publishing a job ad with pay out there may be very disruptive to what's happening internally in your business. Maybe that's
Very
not
true.
worth that lemon may not be worth the squeeze. So the practical thing to do would be to not publish it. However, if you're a corporate business or you're a publicly listed organization, you're a public sector organization, of course you should publish this, because there should be a leveling system there, and there should be transparency, and you should have built all those processes in order to be such a big organization. So anyway, I don't think one size fits all, but yeah, there's some reasons for this. Anyway,
Makes complete sense. All right, let's see what we got for number 3. All right, this is from our CHR report that we released in June. So we polled 1,000 CHROs and 1,000 CIOs. And so this is, kind of looking at from the beginning of the year, looking into 2025, 33, almost 34% of CHROs said that that their organization views TA as a core strategic function. 33% said that they view it as a support function, and 32% said transactional. So it's like a third, a third, a third. And just another little data point, 29% of CIOs, whenever they were polled, viewed TA as a core strategic function. So what say you?
that is the number I care about most, Trent. It's not about what you say about yourself. It's like, what do others say about you? I'd love to see a report on all of the C-level that's not the CHRO.
Okay.
And do they see TA as that core strategic function? Because I think sometimes when we're talking about ourselves, we really struggle to understand exactly what our positioning is. We love to overinflate our position. It's a normal human thing to do. Who doesn't want to be a strategic part of the business? Who doesn't want to feel valued, elevated, and important, and so on? But it is true to say that it's been a multi-decadal struggle for TA, HR, and CHRO people ops in general to get so-called seat at table. And at some point we have to look ourselves properly in the mirror and understand why that is. It may well be that it isn't historically a core strategic function. Is that a problem? Let's open that out. Like, why is that a problem? Firstly, secondly, if it is a problem, then how come we've been complaining about it for 20 years or more, and then failed to move the needle? Like, what is it about us that's identified a problem and then failed to change that problem? Then it seems to me that problem is fairly justified if you know it and you can't deal with it for 20 years or more.
No, absolutely.
So anyway, I think the opportunity going forward for us is, for us meaning the entire People Ops organization, I think is it's very positive, in the sense that there may well be an opportunity for us to genuinely become core strategic. And that's not through any departmental wide agenda. It's not like a departmental strategy to get yourself in that position in some sort of Machiavellian way. But it may simply emerge as a result of what artificial intelligence is doing to workforces. And in fact, if we're getting to the point where sort of artificial intelligence will significantly redesign all jobs in business, for instance. Who else is equipped to start thinking about what that new job would look like? Who else is there to kind of represent the human side of things when the AI is going to just say, right, here's the optimal way to do every single thing? It has to be coming from within the people ops function. So I think let's imagine a future where human and digital worker / agent will be kind of colleagues within a workflow. I think what is now the people ops function may in future be something else, because we've got to be more inclusive of some entities that may not be described as people. So maybe we need to reinvent the language to describe what we do. But I think there's an opportunity for us genuinely to say, okay, perhaps we can be the function that designs the human and AI kind of working patterns that deliver optimal value to the business. So yeah, I think the future is bright, though the path to it may be narrow, Trent.
It's going to be a little bumpy.
Yeah.
Well, Hung, thank you so much for coming on. And it's actually a perfect segue. Just, you were talking about, kind of looking at yourself. One of the things as a practitioner that I always struggled with is I didn't have data from the outside. I was usually just kind of comparing to ourselves, like we did better than we did this time last year, but I had no benchmark. And that's one of the reasons that iCIMS likes to put out this information. So that way you do have a benchmark, what's going on in the market. That way you can kind of judge and see how you're doing and where you need to recalibrate. We believe that our data and our insights help recruiters create successful strategies. So thank you so much for coming on board. I really appreciate it. Always enjoyed the time.
Brilliant stuff, Trent.
All right. Thank you. Matt, back to you.
Hi, Natalie, and welcome as this week's guest to the show. Brilliant to be talking to you.
It's great to be here, Matt. I'm super glad that didn't go to voicemail. So
that would have been quite awkward. Lots of voicemail and all that sort of stuff. So please introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do.
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. Natalie Egan. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm CEO and founder of this company called Znario, where we basically build a tech-enabled training platform for managers to lead trainings with their employees, with their teams. And we're an early stage startup, and we're doing some pretty exciting stuff. And I'm just super excited to be here having this conversation with you. So thank you.
Fantastic. So we'll get more into what Znario does sort of during the conversation. But tell us a little bit about you. What was your kind of journey to be where you are today, and why did you start the business?
So I think I always consider myself a serial entrepreneur. I'm always trying to solve problems. I'm always trying to help people. I've been starting businesses since I was a little kid. This is my sort of second, kind of third venture-backed HR technology business. I was an early sort of pioneer on the LinkedIn API back in, it was like 2010. So I was like one of the first third-party developers when LinkedIn used to have like an app store. They didn't call it that, but I'm just trying to help people kind of understand what that might have looked like. And so I built a company based off the LinkedIn API that like took off like a rocket ship and came crashing down. And I ended up coming out as a trans woman in 2016. Started the business right before this, called Translator. It was a DEI training platform. Had a really good run. It went up and then it came crashing down. The world changed. DEI became illegal. And then, unfortunately, I'm not happy or smiling about that, but I'm just sort of pointing to the irony of those two like waves that I was riding. And we launched Znario after about 2 years of testing, really commercially launching it in the last 6 months. And it's designed to take everything I've learned from building an HR tech and kind of put it together in one great platform, and hopefully third time's a charm, I guess.
Absolutely. And tell us more about what exactly it does. What problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah, so I don't think a lot of people realize this, but 90% of all workforce learning is informal and unstructured, meaning like it happens on the job through storytelling. People are learning from each other, not necessarily through e-learning or traditional classroom style training. So e-learning is less than 10% of how we learn in the workplace. And yet e-learning is a $400 billion global industry. So Znario kind of exists to put structure and metrics and scalability to a system that can tap into that like story-driven behavior of how employees learn. And so basically the platform you bring a group of people together, typically more than 4 or 5, but you can certainly do like 3. We've had clients do 3 people, but it could be 500. It doesn't matter. You bring a group of people together, and we're going to put that group in a scenario. They're quick, they're fast, they're 45 to 60 seconds long. And then people are going to answer questions about what they would do in that scenario and then have a candid conversation about it. You can chat anonymously through our platform if you don't want to share out loud. And then we provide metrics afterwards. It's pretty cool. It's fun. It's designed to bring people together. to learn, build relationships, and then it's like part forensics afterwards. So organizationally, you can look at it and say, wow, look, all of our employees are really confused by this policy, or they're doing this when we want them doing that. But it's not a quiz. It's not a multiple choice, like right or wrong. A good scenario is like puts you in sort of an awkward situation.
And what kind of data would a manager get out of it, and how might it help them sort of develop their team?
Decision patterns, sentiment analysis, confidence. Those are probably the three main things that we're measuring. And then there's all kinds of other anecdotal stuff that comes through it. Depends really on the scenario. So if you're doing a safety scenario with your team, you're going to find out pretty quickly, like, we'd rather people be doing this, but they're just doing that because the feedback in the platform is telling us that they're not getting paid enough, or people are under pressure from the client, so they're doing this shortcut. So again, it's not like e-learning e-learning, like, I'm not bashing e-learning, by the way. Like, e-learning is necessary. It's not going away, but people have gotten really good at gaming, gaming is maybe not the right word, but they're really good at choosing the right answer because it's obvious.
Yeah.
Right? They don't even need to pay attention to the content because they know the answer before they even got there. But our scenarios are designed, again, to put you kind of in, it's like, we call it like an ick factor, where it's like, ooh, I don't know what I would do in that situation. Yeah. There might be a best answer, but not a right answer.
And in terms of how employers sort of approach learning and development, particularly how they kind of allocate their budgets, do you think that the balance is wrong there? They're not really paying enough attention to, as you say, how people really learn?
I just don't think we've had alternatives, And I think when e-learning, the promise of e-learning came out, it was like everybody ran to it, and it was like everybody was investing into it. And I think in some ways we're probably a little bit over-indexed but we also didn't have any alternatives, right? I mean, it's like cost effective. You could self-pace and do it on your own. Like, there's a lot of benefits to e-learning, but it shouldn't be the primary way that you're putting, it's like, I was talking to one of our customers the other day, and they're like, we've invested so much in that 10%, but we haven't done anything about, how people are really learning skills. And, just real quick, the analogy that I use is like, let's say we go work for a company, right? Like, if you already work there, there's a high probability, depending on that, whatever that job is, that it's going to be like, okay, Natalie, you're going to shadow Matt for the next 3 weeks, right? Yeah. For better or worse. So, I'm going to learn the good things that Matt does, the bad things that Matt does. And if Matt doesn't like me, by the way, like, I'm probably going to, my retention rate is going down. So, it's just an opportunity. It's not really like anything else.
And can you see kind of broad applications for this? So, for example, could someone use it for job simulation in recruiting, or, group recruiting exercises or something like that?
Of course, yeah. Talent acquisition is a really big area of opportunity for us. We've got a whole suite of scenarios around new hire onboarding experience. So literally, you're just joining the company. It's your first couple of weeks, all to the recruiting pipeline. So, you're in an interview, and the candidate shows up and they don't have their camera on, right? Like, what do you do in that scenario? And it's really interesting to get recruiters talking about what they would do if the candidate can't turn their camera on, right? I mean, especially if it's, a high pressure situation, candidates should be able to figure out how to, there's a resourcefulness that you can see in a candidate by figuring out a way to get their camera on. But if they just tell you, I can't turn my camera on, what do? Do you get rid of that candidate? Do you screen them out? Do you reschedule? I would love to know, what would people do?
Yeah. And from there, from the sort of scenarios that you've run and the data that you collected, what's been the kind of most surprising thing, or the most surprising benefit that people have got from the system?
So when we first, this is probably not the answer you're looking for, but it comes to mind. But so when we first started testing and launching this, and again, it was off of a pivot, right? So I came up with this idea, and I approached my CTO. I said, can we just try this? And he's like, yes, like he was hesitant. He didn't want it. Like he's like, we could try it, but I don't think it's going to work. And his logic was that it's too simple.
Yeah.
And he's like very different than I am. Like we're like opposites, right? But he literally is like, he's like, just too simple. It's not going to work. And I think that simplicity, like in the early, like that's what people love about it, right? Like we did a really cool, like 3 or 4 month pilot with a group of car dealerships, sales scenarios, right? These are not technical people. They're not like, car dealerships, frankly, just don't have great training, right? And there's a lot of turnover. And I had a lot of anxiety. I was like, is this going to work? Like, I don't know. They loved it. I mean, like they were doing 1 scenario a week, sometimes 2 scenarios a week, because sometimes like the car dealership gets slow. Like if the weather's bad outside, like there's more time sitting around. They're not doing anything. And the managers don't know how to, like people that run sales at automotive dealerships, like they're just good salespeople. They weren't really trained correctly to be managers. They don't know how to train new employees. So we kind of give them pop-up content to have conversations, and sales reps love to talk. I mean, you can tell, like, look at me. Here I am, like blabbering. I'm a salesperson. So they love that storytelling. It's super simple. That's probably the most surprising thing, is that people just love the simplicity of it.
And final question. So we're getting near the end of the year. We're getting into the dreaded prediction time in terms of what people think is going to happen next year. Give us your prediction for next year about this space and how it might evolve.
So I think I think next year is going to be a big year for us and for this space. I mean, scenario-based training is a very popular thing, and it's being driven by the AI sim like world, right? So AI simulations, people logging in and basically doing e-learning, but now they're talking to, something that's responding to them, and it's like it's blinking and it's breathing when you're waiting. It's kind of a weird experience, but I think that space is going to grow a lot, and I think we're kind of like catching on to that. I think what you're going to see for us is probably going to become really big in like what I'm calling like manager-led training. I see that really becoming a strategy in the sort of L&D kind of portfolio. It probably big time in like 2 to 5 years. Like that's my prediction. There's sort of a viral growth to our platform. So we'll see. Let's revisit this. Let's do this call in like 2 years and be like, let's see, did it grow the way you expected? But I think it's going to be very big. I think AI sim is going to be really big. And I think this complements it all really well, because AI simulation is still e-learning. I mean, it's still asynchronous, right? It's still learning for yourself.
Yeah.
People want something different.
Absolutely. Natalie, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of the show, and I look forward to having our conversation again in like a year or 2.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the show. So a big thank you to Jocelyn, to Trent, to Hung, to Natalie, and of course to Alan, our producer, for keeping everything going and holding it together in the background. There are a ton of other great shows on the Purple Acorn Network. Workfluencer, the HR Morning Show, From the Desk, My First Job, From Ecstasy, and many, many, many more. So head over to purpleacornnetwork.com, or even better, follow their LinkedIn page for all the information on those shows. If you want to listen to this show as a podcast, it's available wherever you listen to your podcasts. My longer form interviews are available on Recruiting Future, again, available wherever you listen to your podcasts. The Alder Hour will be back next week. I'm already looking forward to it. This is Matt Alder, clocking out.